NASA's mission is to explore the unknown.
There's more that we don't know than we do know. That's just the nature of the universe.
Searching for answers, it launches scientists into space and craft beyond the edge of the solar system.
Taking risks is part of making discoveries.
Space exploration is like lighting a match, and we don't know what lurks in the shadows.
Hey, what is that?
There could be anything out there.
Strange flying objects on the moon and Mars.
Something up there is sabotaging or is trying to sabotage the your space station.
Intelligent lightning and abandoned space stations. Unexpected intruders lurking in our solar system. Or alien craft powered by nuclear explosions.
There's really quite a subject. This object is not on its own in the sky. There's something with it.
NASA's missions uncover disturbing evidence.
Okay, we're seeing 3 or 4 objects.
There are 3 objects.
That continues to perplex our finest scientific minds. This is a journey into uncharted territory. Into NASA's Unexplained Files. July 19th, 1969. As Apollo 11 makes its final approach to the moon, mysterious lights appear, dazzling the astronauts.
Even the harshest critic discovered the fact that this was real. They actually did see something.
NASA thinks it's moon debris.
It had to be something else. It really is a mystery.
Is there something there they don't want the public to know?
Just hours before NASA astronauts take man's first steps on the moon, astronomers in Germany report a strange light coming from the Aristarchus crater.
Apollo 11 is Houston, go ahead.
Mission Control immediately asks the astronauts to investigate.
There's been some lunar transient events reported in the vicinity of Aristarchus. Over.
Hey, Houston, I'm looking north up towards Aristarchus now.
You take a look and see if you see anything worth noting up there. Over.
What Apollo 11 sees defies explanation.
There's an area there that is considerably more illuminated than the surroundings.
The Apollo astronauts see this glow in this crater.
11 is Houston. Can you discern any difference in color of the illumination?
No, it doesn't appear to be any color involved in it, Chris.
They're having this conversation back and forth with Capcom, and they mention it. Suddenly, there's interference, there's static, and there's silence.
The live mission broadcast disappears for 89 tenth seconds.
Is NASA deliberately cutting out a public feed because they didn't want us to know that something is on the moon that shouldn't be?
NASA astronaut Charles Duke doesn't think so. He was part of the shift at Mission Control in the hours immediately following the incident.
Can you give us a status report, please?
I was the only guy talking to them for 8 hours till we landed on the moon. I don't remember any big discussion about transients.
Is there something there they don't want the public to know?
It's an issue that's fascinated lunar scientist Peter Schultz for decades.
I saw something on the moon many years, 40, 50 years ago, and realized it's very dangerous to publish anything about this. It was terribly controversial, could ruin a career.
NASA calls these sightings transient lunar phenomena, TLP for short.
TLP could be something other than natural.
There are a lot of transient events on the moon, but I can't comment specifically.
Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. And if it's artificial, that would belie all the stories about the moon being a dead celestial body.
NASA's official position is that Aristarchus glistens because it contains reflective dust. But Peter Schultz claims the sun wasn't in the right place to reflect off the crater when Apollo 11 saw it.
Aristarchus was in the nighttime when the astronauts from Apollo 11 went over it. So it can't be a glint off the sun. It had to be something else. It really is a mystery.
Solar glint remains NASA's official explanation, although not everyone agrees.
People were fired because of people trying to look for those transient phenomena. Amazing. So all these reports, all these astronomers who said they saw something and nobody believed them, they were probably right.
Aristarchus was the first of many sightings that make moonwatchers think there's more to our nearest neighbor than meets the eye.
Even today, there are people who think that there might be artifacts on the moon, things left by societies. I mean, think of the movie 2001. There's a big monolith on the moon.
Earth's moon may still hide secrets, but Mars's largest moon might itself be the biggest mystery in the solar system.
The data that we retrieved from Phobos makes it seem as though Phobos is hollow.
There have been thoughts that it might be the remnants of a huge space station.
If that were true, holy cow, that changes everything.
Small, fast, and impossibly low. Phobos streaks just 5,800 miles above the surface of Mars, and its orbit is shrinking. Astronomers calculate that Phobos will collide with the planet in the next 10 million years, a blink of an eye in astronomical time. And that poses some difficult questions.
In astronomy, you have something that will only last for 10 million years. It's not from the formation of the solar system. It's something more recent. How do you get that more recent thing? How did Phobos get captured into an orbit around Mars?
In 1958, Russian astrophysicist Yosef Slavsky asked the same thing. When he measured the orbital velocity of Phobos, he made an astonishing discovery. To his surprise, the moon changes speed, but there was more.
It was his investigation, his research into Phobos that suggested the idea that Phobos was hollow. And that is so tantalizing for experts at NASA that that's really one of the reasons we were driven to Mars, just to explore the possibility that Mars had a hollow moon.
Because if Phobos is hollow, that opens up a whole new set of possibilities.
If indeed it's hollow, that certainly means somebody put it up.
Why would you even want to build a hollow moon in Mars orbit anyway? A refueling station? A jumping off point?
If I were involved in setting priorities for NASA, I would be interested in Phobos too.
NASA's budget, a lot of that budget is a black budget. It's a secret budget. It's doing missions for the military, doing missions for the intelligence agency. But maybe, just maybe, one of those missions has to be to explore celestial bodies, moons, that are actually hollow on the inside.
Whoever gets to Phobos first may stand to win points with whatever intelligence put it up.
Landing on Phobos is a massive technological hurdle that no human agency has so far managed to jump.
Interesting that every time we try to send something to Phobos, it fails for some reason. Maybe something's stopping us from getting there.
Perhaps our first successful mission to Phobos will signify a major milestone for humankind and anyone else who's watching. But astronomer J.J. Cavallars is not convinced that Phobos is artificial.
When we do spectroscopy of Phobos' surface, we see that it's made from the same sort of thing as the asteroids are made from. So this gives a pretty good indication of where it's coming from. If it was a more exotic material, you would detect that.
If Phobos is an asteroid, how can it be hollow?
Phobos is basically made up of a bunch of boulders and loosely aggregated dust. And so there's lots of voids, space, between the rocks. And so the density of the object itself is really quite low compared to the rocks that it's made from.
NASA believes that over billions of years, the pull of gravity has drawn bits of orbital debris together. Phobos is just a big pile of rocks.
Definitely not a space station. Phobos is not a space station.
But that doesn't mean that Phobos can't become a great space station. It is perfectly located to be the base from which we can explore Mars, possibly occupy Mars. If Phobos isn't a space station yet, don't worry, it will be.
We're a long way from putting a man on Mars, but NASA's latest mission suggests that something or someone has already been there.
We finally land rovers on Mars. And what's the first thing we see? Two objects flying away. We go 5 million miles, and we see UFOs flying over Mars.
As NASA's Curiosity rover begins a new era in Mars exploration,
it's a real major life event for everybody around you.
Astonishing footage leaves scientists stunned.
We get not just one, but a double UFO sighting. Doesn't that strike you as odd?
August 6, 2012. Deputy Principal Investigator Jim Bell waits as NASA's innovative new Sky Crane landing system lowers the Curiosity rover onto the surface of Mars.
There's this immense wave of relief that kind of washes over everybody.
After an 8-month wait, scientists will finally see the first high-resolution pictures of the red planet. But the images that grab the world's attention suggest Curiosity has company.
We've wanted so long to be on Mars, looking around. We've got Curiosity there. We flip on the cameras. What do we see? Very first thing that happens, 2 flying objects.
An eerie, cloud-like shape hovers on the horizon. And that's not all. Moving across the cloud, a bright object travels at high speed.
A double UFO study. That seemed very strange to me. Might be what you'd expect if there were beings paying attention to what we're doing in outer space.
A theory emerges that the white dot could be a snapshot of either Deimos or Phobos, the moons of Mars. But Bell isn't convinced.
What's actually seen in those pictures is not going the right way or the right speed or the right brightness to be either Phobos or Deimos, Mars' other moon.
For Jim Bell, the very movement of the object is a problem. Because the first picture Curiosity took after landing was not a moving image.
We took a few pictures with the Curiosity cameras right around that time, but we didn't take a time-lapse series of images. We didn't take a movie with those cameras.
Curiosity's hazard camera took only 8 photographs at the time of the landing, and all of them were still images. So if a dot is moving across the picture, it has to have been added later.
This image is just that, one image. So how can you have a movie from just one image?
Astronomer Mark Antonio is also a professional image analyst. He can prove just how easy it is to doctor a picture like this.
I've taken this similar image taken of the billowing cloud on the horizon. You see it just there, right there on the horizon. And I've added a UFO of my own. And when I hit the play button, you can actually see it moving across. And then off it goes. It disappears, and it goes behind a part of the structure of the rover. But I added that in. It's all fake.
It's that easy to alter NASA's footage.
We post our images on the internet in almost real time. Anyone in the world can download them. And if you want to go in and change the brightness of some pixels and duplicate the images and make a little time lapse, it's possible. People are really good with image processing software right now.
One final piece of proof is the cloud seen billowing on the horizon.
The cloud wasn't moving at all. And that was a problem for me because that made me feel like, well, this is clearly a hoax.
Yet that doesn't explain the presence of the cloud in the first place. Something must have caused it. For the answer to this, Jim Bell believes we need to study the events leading up to the landing.
Many of my colleagues think that we sort of accidentally captured the crash and explosion of the Sky Crane. This whole package flies away off to the horizon, still has a whole bunch of fuel on it. And as it hits the ground, that fuel explodes, creates this big plume, and I think that's what we're seeing in those images.
But not everyone accepts the Sky Crane explanation.
It's too simplistic, too easy. I think we would certainly know if the Sky Crane was going away and what would happen to it. We'd know about that.
To date, NASA has offered no official explanation for the anomaly. Perhaps we need to look farther afield for signs of alien activity. Far out in the Magellanic Clouds, scientists have spotted something that raises intriguing possibilities.
When we see high-energy radiation coming from deep space, one possibility is, well, maybe that's somebody else's nuclear rocket.
It's the most awesome surfing experience you can imagine.
NASA scientists detect strange X-ray signals in a neighboring galaxy.
Maybe that's somebody else's nuclear rocket.
Could they be traces of an alien star drive?
Dumping nuclear bombs out the rear hatch and riding the wave.
It needs further investigation.
2010. NASA's Chandra Observatory detects an X-ray signature in a neighboring galaxy cluster known as the Small Magellanic Cloud. Astronomers initially interpret the X-ray as a pulsar.
Pulsars are spinning neutron stars, and they result from the collapse of massive stars.
When the star collapses, all of its mass concentrates into a tiny sphere, the pulsar.
It's called pulsar because when this very, very dense objects rotate, they emit X-rays in pulses.
But this pulsar is behaving very weirdly. The object takes 18 minutes to rotate, way longer than any pulsar should.
To have a pulsar that rotates at only 18 minutes, for a period of 18 minutes, is pretty much impossible.
The data that we were looking at didn't make sense.
If the signal isn't a pulsar, what else would it be?
When we see high energy radiation coming from deep space, you know, one possibility is, well, maybe that's somebody else's nuclear rocket.
A nuclear rocket that explodes regularly every 18 minutes might sound unlikely, but the physics make sense.
In order to move forward, you have to have reaction, according to Newton's second law. One way to do that is to burn chemical fuel in the rockets we have right now. Another is to drop little bombs behind yourself and just explode them, and let the explosion push you forward. Early in the space age, it was thought that we could do that with atomic bombs.
Radiation would push on a plate behind the spacecraft and then move it forward.
Pushing the bam, bam, bam through space. You're dumping nuclear bombs out the rear hatch and riding the wave. It's the most awesome surfing experience you can imagine.
It sounds like science fiction, but it isn't. Footage from a top-secret 1950s project shows that NASA was seriously considering using atomic bombs as a method of propulsion. The scheme was called Project Orion.
There was talk of using an atomic bomb to move a pre-formed colony the size of the Empire State Building to Mars. There was serious discussion of it, and on paper, it would work.
One design assumed that we would use nuclear bombs even at the launch, and therefore there would be several nuclear explosions in the atmosphere.
Project Orion was eventually abandoned in 1964 because of nuclear test treaties. But human treaties wouldn't keep other civilizations from using the technology.
If we were to see a signal from that far away, it would imply a considerable amount of energy, much larger than any nuclear bomb that we could ever produce. It's unlikely that this signal was indeed produced by an advanced civilization.
If this is not an alien Orion drive, scientists have to explain the potential pulsar's strange behavior.
Currently, we don't understand why it's spinning this slowly. But the theory is that in some way, its interaction with a companion star is actually slowing it down rather than spinning it up. It's still something that we need to understand.
If this is a pulsar, it's not acting like any pulsar we've ever seen. It's unique somehow in the universe, or at least to our perception. But it goes exactly like what I would expect in a Project Orion drive to behave.
Every time we see something that's creepily, strangely regular, it's good that we have a corner of our brain that says, what if somebody meant that to happen?
Up next, what if lightning can communicate with itself?
You see one flash on one storm, and about a few seconds later, you see another flash on the other storm.
Secret signs in the sky suggest an alien code.
Well, it looked like they were actually talking to each other.
Astronauts in orbit witness a baffling phenomenon, undetectable from the Earth's surface.
Sometimes we'll be confronted with things that we can't understand, that are just weird. It shouldn't be that way.
We don't know what's going on up there.
Lightning storms hundreds of miles apart appear to communicate with each other.
Thunderstorm cells are quite distant. How could one storm know what the other storm is doing?
After the tragic breakup of the Columbia shuttle during re-entry, NASA scientists analyzed the footage beamed back from its final mission. The astonishing images provide evidence for something astronauts have reported since the early days of spaceflight.
When you're up more than 200 miles up and you're looking out 1,000 miles in any particular direction, it just seems amazing to me that you're always going to see lightning. Lightning strikes all over the planet, millions of times a day. It kills a lot of people, causes a lot of damage. We, in some sense, know how the inside of stars work better than how the inside of a thunderstorm works, just a few miles over our heads.
Astronauts report bolts of lightning hundreds of miles apart, flashing in precisely orchestrated sequences.
all of a sudden, somewhere there would be a lightning strike. It looked like it triggered a whole series of lightning strikes, a real chain reaction type of thing.
Just sort of running over the cloud and discharging the cloud. So it has a pattern, you know, it would seem to walk across the cloud like that.
Weather specialist Steve Vaughn has a name for the uncanny phenomenon. He calls it sympathetic lightning.
Our definition of sympathetic lightning was arrived at because we saw two big electrical storms about 1,500 miles apart. You see one flash on one storm, and about a few seconds later you see another flash on another storm. And so they look like they're actually talking to each other.
This is hard to figure out. How could this happen? Thunderstorm cells are quite distant. How could one storm know what the other storm is doing?
You wonder if these two things are sending communications back and forth. And it appears they maybe are.
Physicist Stanton Friedman wonders if there's some other explanation for this strange phenomenon.
I think there are really interesting phenomena here, and we're not being told anything about them. I think if we look carefully at some of the reports we get of flying saucers, we find electrical aspects. For example, color in the region around the craft changes as it changes direction. The color changes when the speed changes.
The process of harnessing electricity to improve flight is called magneto-aerodynamics.
This would be interactions of craft in the atmosphere, electrical interactions. When I did a survey on magneto-aerodynamics, I found that there were 900 references to government reports using that one key word. Like it or not, and 90% of those references were classified. I would sure love to see those classified files about magneto-aerodynamics. Wow.
The contents of the mysterious files on magneto-aerodynamics remain classified. And for the time being, at least, the phenomenon known as sympathetic lightning must remain unexplained.
Something strange is going on.
In space, something even stranger is happening. Coming up.
Something up there is sabotaging the Mir space station.
And strange objects dog the last mission on the moon.
Was this a warning from some kind of extraterrestrial culture? Stay off the moon. It's not yours, it's ours.
Mysterious lights buzz the Mir space station.
Chris Hadfield saw something out the window.
He almost wonders if something up there is sabotaging or is trying to sabotage the Mir space station.
Could it be ET probes looking at the Mir space station?
In the wake of the Cold War, NASA's Shuttle Atlantis is about to try one of the most dangerous space maneuvers ever attempted.
And liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis with the Russian rocket module critical to world cooperation in space.
The shuttle must dock with Russia's Mir space station. The lives of those aboard, like mission specialist Jerry Ross, depend on it.
177 feet stop.
It had never been designed for a large vehicle such as a space shuttle to come up and dock to it. And it really was a pretty precarious thing for us to come in and dock directly to the Mir space station with the space shuttle.
Atlantis, go and throttle up.
You have to remember that the Mir space station probably weighed 500,000 pounds, and the space shuttle weighed 250,000 pounds. And we're both flying at 5 miles per second, 200 some miles above the surface of the Earth. So all those things are playing into what you're doing.
The slightest misjudgment could end in tragedy. But just as they think the hardest part of their mission is over, something unexpected distracts the astronauts.
I recall Chris Hadfield mentioning that he saw something out the window. And several of us came up to the window, we grabbed some cameras and some binoculars, and we were trying to identify what it was.
During this docking process, they start to notice that there are objects moving and essentially flying, from the look of it, around the Mir space station. Start wondering what all this is.
That's terrifying.
NASA says the objects are ice particles shaken free by thruster vibrations.
We have ice all over the place because water cannot exist in a vacuum is water. It has to flash immediately into ice. So when we dump water overboard, for example, it immediately turns into ice. Instantly.
There was a tremendous amount of ice that we saw coming off the back end, some very large chunks of it.
Any of these little chunks of ice will float out away from you. They'll reflect sunlight. So if you see them out there a ways away from you, sometimes it looks like light shining.
But the explanation raises more questions than it answers.
A lot of ice particles in space. But the problem is, if they're ice particles that flaked off near, wouldn't they be going in the same direction or in similar directions? But these objects are flying all over the place. So wherever they are, they certainly don't act like ice particles.
Ice particles should move away and stay away. They shouldn't move around as if they were propelled by something. I have no doubt that on some occasions, ice particles have been knocked off because of motion within the craft or whatever. But not nearly as many as NASA is claiming. It's an easy out, and nobody's checking.
In 15 years of active duty, Mir suffers dangerous fires, a near-catastrophic collision, and periods of out-of-control tumbling. It has led some of her crew to suspect they were not alone.
I mean, there were issues with Mir, and Chris Hadfield comments that he almost wonders if something up there is sabotaging or is trying to sabotage, quote-unquote, the Mir space station.
Bad luck, dancing ice, or space saboteurs. The Mir mystery remains unexplained. Still to come, strange sightings on NASA's last mission to the moon.
There's no question that the easiest explanation for why we didn't go on past Apollo 17 is that somebody out there said, stay the heck off our moon.
And when one astronomer goes looking for asteroids, he finds something unexpected.
It's really quite astonishing. This object is not on its own in the sky. There's something with it.
It's the great unknown. It's the far frontier of the solar system.
Something appears to be shadowing the astronauts of the Apollo 17 mission.
You see this very, very thin rectangular image that's kind of hovering, seemingly almost flying.
Is it something watching the astronauts?
We got to pull out. What is this thing that's flying above the lunar landscape?
Was this a warning? Stay off the moon. It's not yours, it's ours.
There's got to be one of the most proud moments in my life, I guarantee you.
December 14th, 1972. Apollo 17 astronauts Eugene Cernan and Jack Schmitt are planting explosives on the moon.
The astronauts set up a network of seismometers on the lunar surface, and these impacts would give you clues to the interior of the moon.
The explosives are part of a geological experiment which will profile the upper crust of the moon. Before the astronauts leave, Cernan takes some last-minute photographs. Years later, one of the photographs catches the attention of astronomer Jim Scotty.
So I'm looking at these images, and I see the mostly black sky, but I see a little streak up in the top part of the image. I start thinking about what sort of natural phenomena or man-made phenomena we're actually seeing in the sky.
What is this strange, small, rectangular shape that we're seeing flying above the lunar surface? Is it some kind of craft, or what else could it be? Is there something out there watching us while we're walking on the lunar surface?
When I see something that I can't quite recognize right away, you can sort of take the scientific approach, or you can jump to conclusions, and I prefer the scientific approach. I look at the print, the higher resolution print, and I can see the shape, and it gives me an idea.
Okay, Bob, I've got my tools of the trade right here.
Scotty thinks the solution lies with Jack Schmitt. NASA picked him for the Apollo 17 crew because of his background as a geologist.
Let's see if I can't crack the corner and get that contact.
Jack Schmitt was the first scientist astronaut to walk on the moon, the only geologist, even today, that has ever walked on the moon.
Obviously very cohesive.
We need to know a great deal more about the variation of the concentration of different minerals. They want to know in detail, where's the good stuff?
I can see it from here. It's orange. That is really orange.
The astronauts spot telltale signs of titanium and other exotic minerals. They are eager to continue their survey.
There isn't enough time, Tony. We need more time. They gotta leave at a certain time regardless of what we got.
Running low on oxygen, they must end the spacewalk. Just before they head back to the module, Cernan asks the mission's geologist an odd question.
Gene Cernan says, "Can I throw the hammer? Are we done with it?" Jack says, "Can I throw the hammer? I'm the geologist."
You're a geologist, gotta be able to. You ready? Go ahead.
Scotty thinks this conversation is the key to unlocking the mystery of the anomaly in Cernan's photographs.
Most likely these 3 images were taken by Gene Cernan, who was carrying a camera with black and white film, and it's very consistent with him taking some images of the hammer in flight. Mystery solved.
This closes a golden chapter in the age of space exploration.
Mankind never returned to the moon. As one chapter closes, another opens on the furthest reaches of the solar system.
The Kuiper Belt is the new mysterious zone of the solar system. It's the great unknown.
But something is missing.
It must have been there once upon a time.
More than 90% of what should be there has simply disappeared.
So why is the Kuiper Belt depleted?
There's a lot we don't understand. It's a total mystery.
Hawaii, August 2001. J.J. Cavallars searches the Kuiper Belt, the vast area of space at the far frontier of the solar system. Using a state-of-the-art telescope, he's hunting the debris left over from planet formation.
We're basically doing archaeology. We're digging through the sky, looking at these objects, trying to map out the evolution of our planetary system.
He's tracking a tiny object, labeled 2001 QW322.
I entered the coordinates for 2001 QW322 into the telescope control system. The telescope slews over, points at that part of the sky, and I acquire an image.
But this is no routine observation.
It's really quite astonishing. This object is not on its own in the sky. There's something with it.
The object is a binary pair, 2 tiny asteroids bound together by the pull of their own gravity. That should be impossible. There's almost 80,000 miles between the pair, the diameter of 10 Earths.
It's unbelievable to us that such tiny, tiny objects can be bound together and be separated by such a large distance.
But they're still together, and there are others just like them.
This isn't the only loosely bound binary in the outer solar system. So now we know there's a whole population of these kinds of orbits out there.
That leads scientists to a mind-blowing conclusion. In order for this to happen, a staggering 99% of the material that should be in the Kuiper Belt must have disappeared. Could that happen naturally?
One of the leading theories for why the Kuiper Belt could be depleted is that gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus, didn't just form where they're at now and stay there.
We think that maybe there was almost some cosmic billiards that went on as the orbits of the planets were settling themselves into place.
These things are pretty heavy-duty players in the solar system, and so they were throwing their weight around. The theory is that their gravitational influence got rid of a lot of things that were originally in the Kuiper Belt.
Astronomer Mark D'Antonio has another theory. He blames an unknown intruder for grabbing the material on its way out of the solar system.
We have a simulation of the Kuiper Belt right here, where we use this magnet and we run it underneath. You can actually see how attractive forces pull and tug particles out of the way. In our Kuiper Belt, that's the equivalent of pulling planets and asteroids. One of the things we can speculate about is whether we had more planets in our solar system or not. If that's true, then if it was ejected by some gravitational interaction with Jupiter or one of the other planets, it would have also left our solar system and gone right out like this and taken a whole bunch of Kuiper Belt objects with it.
The Kuiper Belt is the new mysterious zone of the solar system. It's the great unknown. It's the far frontier of the solar system. And we have a NASA mission that's going to go find out what's out there. It's called New Horizons, and our destination is Pluto.
All of these questions that we have will remain unanswered until the New Horizons mission gets there and provides us with, hopefully, some of these answers.
NASA's unceasing quest for answers takes us to the outer edges of the solar system and beyond. rovers cross faraway planets and telescopes look to distant stars, shedding new light on our own planet's mysteries, offering glimpses of exciting new possibilities. The answers to space's greatest challenges are out there.